Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Mind Your Own Biz. My name is Alicia Yervis, and I'm your host. I'm very, very happy to have you here today. Thanks for joining me. So you've heard me talk many times on this podcast. It's kind of the whole point of the podcast, of why I believe it's so important to be yourself in your business. Not only that you can be yourself in your business, but that it's important to do so. And that means like not just feeling more at home in your actual brand, but so that your content and your marketing, your messaging actually connects and converts. And I believe that it's important to grow that know, like, and trust factor because people hire people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. And so I believe that your marketing, your messaging, your social media, all of your content are different doorways in to allow people to get to know more about you, the real you. I believe you are your brand. You are what makes your business what it is. People like to put a face to a name, and people want to find those little ways to connect with you. You know, when you relate to somebody or see that they're posting something that you're interested in, or, oh my God, that same thing happened to me, right? Like it encourages conversation. And so before I welcome today's guest, where we're going to talk about that, in some specific ways that she pulls that into her business, I want to remind you of a couple episodes that can help you with this very topic. So, number one, I want to make sure you know about episode 3 of this podcast, which is called Five Fun Ways to Be More You in Your Marketing. This is where I do a mini version of one of my master classes. I take you through it in the episode itself. And this is a lot of fun. I really encourage you to listen to it if you're kind of spinning your wheels and looking for ways to, kind of a introduction to how you can put more of you into your marketing. And then also, I want to make sure you know about episode 5, which is called Shine Online. Make your website a reflection of you and attract dream clients. So in that episode, it's 25 specific ways to make your website reflect your unique personality. Little touches that you can do yourself, or with your web person if you have someone helping you with your website. But it's meant to be DIY. I didn't want to overwhelm you with anything too technical. But these little touches and flourishes throughout your site can really add a pop of personality, and they're memorable. I can't tell you how many times people visit my website and they're like, "Oh, you had me at nachos," because I call myself a nacho enthusiast on my website. I also have a playlist on there of like my favorite 80s tunes. So these little pops of personality have been helpful for me in my business over the last 8 years as I've been growing my brand. So I wanted to make sure that you know about them because I'm not gatekeeping anything here, and I really think that they can be helpful for all of you as well. And to that end, if we want to jump into more of this in an even more detailed way, I'm going to be opening the doors to my social media content strategy course very, very soon. So you can get on the waitlist now at aliciayervis.com/waitlist. I want to make sure that I can let you know about it as soon as the doors open. This is going to be the 4th cohort of this course. It's a lot of fun. Today's guest is actually a past student of that course, so maybe we'll talk about it a little bit today. But it's all about how to build a social media content strategy that feels like you so that you can attract those dream clients, those kindred spirits that are out there waiting to work with you, and those people that light you up, the people and projects that light you up. So we're going to go into all of that in my social media content strategy course. I really hope to have you in the next cohort. And I just want to remind you of something. You know, when I talk about this stuff, maybe you're thinking, okay, yeah, I like the idea of creating a social media content strategy. It feels like me, but like, I just feel like I'm not interesting enough. And I hear you on that. This is a big one. I hear it all the time. But I have to tell you a secret. You are wrong. Like, period. You're wrong, my friend. Just rest assured, you're special. You have a story to share. And I have to share this quick little story. So I got a text message. I post about this stuff all the time, right? Like I'm always kind of spreading this message and encouraging folks to put more of themselves and more of their personality into their business. And um, I had gotten a text message from a friend slash peer um, after she had seen, an email I had sent out to my list that was kind of about this topic. And she sent me a text and it said, I just read your email for today, Alicia. I don't know what makes me unique. And she put a bunch of crying emojis. Um, and I just knew right away that that wasn't true. Um, and I was already brimming with ideas for how she could begin incorporating some of herself into her content. And so I wrote her back, and this is the text message I sent. I said, you're a mom. You're a dreamer. You're a Southern girl and Georgia peach. You're an ADHD newbie. You're an educator. You're a multi-hyphenate entrepreneur who's passionate and interested in many things. You love aliens and sci-fi and paranormal stuff. You're a leader. You're a data nerd. You love kickboxing. You're a lifelong learner. You're an action taker and an implementer. And think about things that you're drawn to: colors, shows and movies, books, foods, destinations, scents, decor, all that stuff. Well, after a few minutes, she wrote me back and she said, I would be lying if I said I didn't shed a small tear reading that. Like, I couldn't name one thing that makes me special or unique or me, and you just rattled off 10. And then she sent me a gif of Rachel and Phoebe hugging. And she already started like incorporating some of those very items into her marketing. And I know you have similar nuggets. So let's figure out those nuggets. Let's get them baked in to your content. Okay. So I want you to head to aliciayurvis.com/waitlist. Get on that waitlist, join the course when doors open soon, and check out those other episodes I mentioned in this podcast, episode 3 and episode 5. They're really going to help you out today. All right. I'm really pumped to welcome today's guest. She is a friend of mine. She's a former student of mine. Um, and she's a great person. So here we go. Anisa Bear is an editor, writer, and messaging coach who helps nutrition professionals speak clearly to their audience so they can get more clients to say heck yes and turn confused readers into confident action takers. For almost a decade, Anisa has been the go-to copywriter for government agencies, helping break down legalese into words people can actually understand. During a break from government employment, she worked at Bayer Crop Science alongside some rockstar dietitian communicators. She realized plenty of others in the nutrition world were out there struggling to translate science into something real people actually get, and she knew she could help. So I am very excited to welcome my friend from the Pacific Northwest, coming to you from Oregon, Anisa Bear. Hi, my friend. I'm so excited that you're on the podcast. It's always so much fun when I have somebody who I know already on the show, because we've known each other for a while now. I was sharing in the intro, like that you took my social media content strategy course. You're also a member of my Mini Mind Sisterhood. Um, and yeah, it's just so great when I already know you. I already know so much about you, but my listeners don't know so much about you. So first, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. So first thing, I did mention in the intro that you're coming in from Oregon, and I am wearing my Goonie shirt for you
I
specifically
love it.
today.
Love it.
And we were just chatting offline saying that, I have to come out there and visit you so you can give me a tour of the Goonies house, which I absolutely like have to do at some point. Um, but before we jump into all of the great work that your business does, and what you're passionate about with plain language and helping folks understand what that is, why it's important. I know you work primarily with like nutrition professionals and dietitians and stuff, but I think these lessons are so important for everybody, no matter what kind of business they have. But before we jump into that, I just have to pause for a moment because I want you to take our listeners through the highlights reel of your career because when I first met you, we like can talk for hours. We always do. And your story is just so interesting. Like I have interviewed and lots of my clients and students are definitely Renaissance women. Like they find me, I find them. Those are my people. And I just was like gobsmacked by all of the different things that you've done in your life. So, before I start getting into your business, please take us down the trail to play off of your marketing with nature and trail maps and stuff. Please take us down the trail of how you landed where you are now, and some of the highlights and what you've done in your past career because it's just really unique.
Yeah, so let me see if I can give the like super highlight reel so we're not here for a really long time.
Yeah.
So, I have always been an outdoorsy and animal person ever since I was a kid. I did a lot of,
Hmm.
my family did a lot of camping, and then I did a lot of hiking and outdoorsy stuff with my dad. So I went to the University of California, Davis, and my degree was in animal science, and I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. I'd always been in love with zoos. My family, whenever we went someplace, we always visited the zoo there. We did a lot of that. And so a lot of exotics I was crazy about, but I was crazy about elephants. So while I was trying to like figure out what to do with my life, I decided, oh, well, since I don't really know what I'm going to do after I got my bachelor's degree, let's just go to grad school. Which let me tell you, when it comes to student loans, like maybe that wasn't the best decision. But at the time, I was
Mm.
like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. My professor started this new graduate degree program, which was like an agricultural MBA. So as I was getting my master's degree, I had to do an internship during the summer. And so I got a Smithsonian internship and I worked in
Hmm.
the um, public affairs office of the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., which as a West Coast girl, been on the West Coast my whole life. It was just the experience of moving out to the East Coast and living in Washington, D.C. And I love history as well. And so getting to do all the history, it was amazing. And that was sort of my first toe into the like communications world, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I found out that I could volunteer on the weekends in the elephant barn. So I did that and completely fell in love with it and was like,
Hmm.
this is it. This is what I want to do. I got to finish my degree, but afterwards, I want to get a job. I want to train elephants. And then maybe I can use my degree after I've trained elephants for a little while and then become a manager and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back I was living in California at the time, came back to California, finished my master's degree, got a job as an elephant trainer at a very um, small, as in small nonprofit in the middle of nowhere, Podunk, Oregon, but on a 600-acre wildlife park. And so it was interesting though, because I didn't realize how big the communications component of that job would be until I was in
Hmm.
it, right? And you're working in a park with tourists and you're trying to explain to a 3-year-old, why an elephant is doing something.
Yeah.
And I had to explain it in a way that people could understand. And, also people tend to kind of turn their brains off a little bit when they go on vacation. So it makes it even more important to be as clear and as simple as you can when you're explaining things. And then, and it's sort of the communication part of it kind of snowballed from there. And so my manager was like, hey, I want us to have a presence in these journals. Can you write articles for us? So then I started writing articles. And then, our park was so small that when we did shows every year, we wrote our own scripts. So I ended up writing show scripts.
Hmm.
And so it's like you think, oh, you're taking care of animals, right? You're just doing the animal part of it. No, like there's a big part of it was a lot of the communication piece of it. Um, so I did that for a few years, loved it. It was definitely elephant keeping was much more of a lifestyle than actually just a job. My husband ended up
Mm-hmm.
working at the park, starting to work at the park as well. We actually weren't married at the time. We actually got married at the park, which
Oh,
was
I love
had our wedding there
it.
too. So yeah, and then unfortunately, I learned over a little bit of time that my back was not really built for the really physical work that I was doing.
Hmm.
So I hurt my back, and I had a doctor say, he's like, I want you to really think about what you want to do in your future, mobility wise,
Mm-hmm.
right? And being
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's outdoorsy and likes to hike and camp and do all of those things, I had to make the decision to leave that job and do something else. And so after doing some other things, it's really hard to find another job when you live in a town where the economy is really depressed, but you want to stay there because my husband stayed at the park. And so I ended up doing a bunch of different jobs and then ended up coming back to the park and going to do what I call the people side of the work. And that's when I really everything I was doing was communications. I was the membership director for a while. I was the development director. I gave tours. I did overnight stays where we took people down to the elephant barn and they camped overnight. So
Ooh, that's fun.
it was a lot of fun, but as you can imagine, it's a lot of communication, right? You
Yeah.
are basically spending all your time doing education, answering questions, and you have to do it in a way that is fun and exciting for the people who are there while you're also sneaking in that education of like why it's important that you're seeing these animals and
Yeah.
why conservation is important and that sort of thing. So I did that for a number of years. Ended up leaving the park again. Went in and I was an operations manager for a while for a pump station company. So it was like I would say that a lot of my career changes have been sort of like complete reinvention, except with this sort of thread of communications, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
moved from working in a zoo to working in manufacturing for a pump station company. So
Mm-hmm.
the things in the ground that pump wastewater or stormwater wherever it goes, like after you flush a toilet type thing, right? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
again, like my I was the business manager, but I was also the person who was working with customers before and after they bought from us. So I was doing a lot of explanation on the phone of what we sold. Um, there was a lot of communication involved in just getting everything set up. The first job I did there was put together submittal documents. So we had to put together these big books. It had to be approved by people, right? So and then my boss said, I want us to have a blog on our website and everybody's going to write blogs, right? So it's the
Mm-hmm.
early 2000s when I think blogs were like a really, not that they aren't, people still don't use them, but it was like a big deal. So he always wanted to jump on every trend. So he's like, we're going to have a blog and everybody's going to write blogs. And so all our engineers and stuff were really busy. So I ended up writing most of the blogs or editing the blogs that were written,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I did that job for about 6 years and then decided I didn't want to have a boss anymore and I became a personal trainer. Went
Hmm.
back to did a training program for that. Again, communications, right? Like if you can't explain to
Yep.
people how to do the exercises and why it's important to them, you're not going to be successful in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, and while I was working for the pump station company, I started playing roller derby. For somebody who left a job because it was a little too physically difficult, people were sort of scratching their head like, oh, like you injured your back and now you're playing roller derby. And it's like, well, actually, it was a good thing because it kept me really active. The downside of it was I did break both of my legs within 11 months of each other playing
Oh
roller.
my God.
So,
Shit.
right? So that took me out of doing the fitness training job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I went to work for the state of Oregon again, went to work for Oregon's state psychiatric hospital,
Okay.
and did what I call herding cats for a while, which was sort of like playing roller derby. I supported the psychiatry staff
Okay.
and just sort of did everything they needed. Right? And then, ironically, had been doing some sort of communication really all of those years, and finally got a job
Yeah.
that had communication in the title when I started
Okay.
working for the internal communications department. And so, that was really where I got very much introduced to plain language because we were writing internal communications for janitors who maybe English wasn't even their first language, all the way up to psychiatrists. And we had to meet all of those people to write things that were understandable for them. And then we also worked with our billing department to write letters and informational pieces for our patients who the standard to write for patients who are in a psychiatric hospital is like third or fourth grade, and we were telling them about Medicare. Like I
Hmm.
had to sit down and have meetings with the billing staff like meetings. I'm talking multiple before I could even
Hmm.
understand what it was they were trying to tell staff, and then trying to write it in a way that was that was understandable for patients so they could read the letter and understand what it meant and not sit there and scratch their
Hmm.
heads, right? Uh, at that point, after I did play roller derby for a couple more years, but my feet really started to bother me after that. So I started doing dragon boat racing, which I'm still doing. And I wanted something that was like, and I still hike and camp, but I wanted a sport that was full body where I didn't have to be on my feet. And
Hmm.
dragon boating is definitely that. You're sitting in the boat, right? But you're really using your whole body to move the boat around. Um,
Hmm.
so we moved to St. Louis for a couple years, and
Wait, let me pause you for 1 second. The
yes,
dragon boating, we were just
yes.
talking before you joined me today. Tell us what happened this weekend.
Oh, well, we have our we do actually run a race at home on our river during what's called the World Beat Festival. It's a music festival, and we won gold in our division. So yeah, it
Woo!
was super
Love
exciting.
it. If you're
So much
watching this
fun,
on YouTube, you can see the medal. She just held up the medal.
right?
Congrats, congrats on that. That's so fun. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so I moved to Missouri and ended up going to work for Bayer Crop Science. And I had minored in nutrition, and I always like sort of had my toe in nutrition, partially from fitness training, partially from my own personal experience of having a chronic disease that is really tied to how I eat.
Hmm.
And so when I went to work for Bayer Crop Science, I was working directly with dietitians who were helping to educate other dietitians in the public about where our food comes from. And it was an incredible experience. I worked with incredible people. I worked with 20 plus dietitians, helping them with their communications, helping them plan events, creating communications that we shared out with people, and just had a really great experience there. And then, as we all know, the pandemic happened, right? Like Missouri
Hmm.
had kind of been an experiment for us, and were we going to stay? And we
Hmm.
decided no, we weren't going to stay, mostly because it was really hard to be as outdoorsy as we wanted to. And so we moved back to Oregon.
Hmm.
So that's when I decided I was going to start my own business and help other people with communication. But at the time, I also got a call from my the gal I had worked for at the psychiatric hospital, and she's like, "We really need some help. I've got this short-term gig. Can you come work for me for a little while?" And so I went to work for her for what was supposed to be a 6-month gig, and that was over 2 years ago. And I'm still
Hmm.
doing that as well
Right.
as my business. So
So yeah, so you're I've talked to a couple guests who have a full-time, quote unquote regular job
right,
while having their own business as well, or they're going to be launching their own business soon, or it's a side hustle or whatever. So that, I think is a very common thing for sure. And so I love that you decided like, hey, like I'm going to open my own business. I'm going to launch my own business. Because plain language was something that, number one, you're super passionate about, but just like you said, communication was a thread for your whole like career and life, even if you didn't necessarily realize it in the beginning.
right,
But when you look back at all of those twists and turns through your career, you can see how communication was part of like every single step of that. So I love that kind of like the universe was kind of, guiding you down the river in that way. So let's start with this. Well, first of all, like I love hearing your whole background because it's just so cool. Um, but let's start with this. So what is plain language? Like, what is it? And why does it matter so much in the like health and wellness world? Although I think it matters everywhere.
right,
But tell us, your explanation of what plain language
right.
is and why is it important?
So, plain language is communication that when your audience hears it or reads it, they understand it the first time and they can use it. They don't have to pull out their phone and go, I don't know what that word meant, right? I need to Google it or
Yeah.
whatever. I need to look at my dictionary, right? And part of the reason I focused on the sort of, nutrition professional world is And this happened to me, so I understand how it happens to nutrition professionals. Especially if you're a dietitian, you have to get a master's degree, you have to do a clinical internship. So there's a lot of education involved in that, and you spend a lot of
Hmm.
time interacting with your peers. And so you speak at this level, right? And all of the jargon and scientific terms that you use, you know what they mean, your peers know what you mean, and you end up using them sort of regularly without really thinking about it, right?
Hmm.
Then when you go talk to your audience, right? Or if you go into private practice, um, if you talk to your clients that way, and I've talked to nutrition professors who are like, yeah, I see the glaze over, right? Like people get lost. They don't understand that. And I think it's because I know it was an assumption I made, right? I grew up in a house that had a large science vocabulary. It
Hmm.
was just sort of my assumption that like this is how everybody grows up, right? But you have to remember that not everybody has the same background, right? And
Yep.
especially when it comes to nutrition and just basic science, that is not a common educational background that most of the people in the US have, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Half of the US population also reads at a sixth grade level or lower, right?
Hmm.
So you
Oh my
have
gosh,
to take
yeah.
that into account. So think about how that probably spills over to nutrition professionals, right?
Yeah, and then I would imagine that um when they're trying to absorb that jargon, like that can hurt the impact of the work that professional's trying to do. Like
Yeah,
that they're trying to help this patient or this client or whatever. But for the very simple fact of if they can't understand like the words that are coming out of your mouth, then how are they supposed to take action and do the thing and
right,
and understand and also be like open and committed to the process.
right,
So I think that that's really, really interesting. And it's such a good point about when, you're in you've got these great credentials. You've gotten so much education. You're very, very smart and good at what you do, and you're well trained and all that stuff, and you're surrounding yourself with peers who are just like you, who are talking that same language. And then that realization, which I think is so important for everyone to hear, um, that realization that your peers are not going to be your customers. Your peers are
right.
not going to be your clients. And I think that spreads across to any industry, like, okay, maybe there might be some crossover here and there, but like for the most part, your clients are coming to you because you're the professional. You know your stuff. You're the one that
Right.
can help them. And so you've got to be able to come to their level and explain things in a way that they can understand. And you're absolutely right that not everyone has the same background, the same experiences, the same understanding. So your example of like the giraffe and the rhino and all that stuff is like eye-opening, of course. And it's so important to realize because everybody's backgrounds are just so varied and so different. Um, and so I wonder, why do you think like nutrition pros and fitness coaches in particular, why do you think that they struggle so much with simplifying that message? After all of these years of education, like what are some of the things that might come up for them as they're trying to figure that out?
So it's really interesting. I think the sort of biggest, and I'll just be frank, struggle in my business and getting people to realize that they actually need me is lots of times people will tell me, oh, my messaging's fine. I'm fine. Maybe I'm not in the right place because I don't really, I'm not hearing from my customers. I don't think they're hearing from me. And I
Hmm.
would bet you 99% of the time that actually isn't the case. They need to go back to their messaging because what they think is plain language and understandable is not. I hear dietitians and other nutrition professionals a lot of time use words that I think they think are very common knowledge. Like talking about something being evidence-based. What does that mean to the average American who has a sixth grade education and doesn't have a strong understanding of science? What does evidence-based mean?
Hmm.
Another word I hear all the time, which is one of my pet peeve words, is satiety.
What
Do you
is
know what
that?
satiety means, Alicia?
No.
And I was actually taking a course from a dietitian, and the first time she used that word, I actually had to look it up. Satiety means you feel full. That's all it means. So why can't you
Oh,
just say feel full, right?
got it.
I
Yeah.
think that for nutrition professionals is really the root of the problem, is
Mm-hmm.
that their understanding of what they believe is non-jargon or plain language is not enough. 1 in 7 Americans have a learning disability.
Hmm.
How many of the US population English is not their first language or their second
Mm-hmm.
language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you run into the problems of acronyms, um, idioms, which idioms are when you say something on the other hand. If I say on the other hand, if you speak English as your first language, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Yep.
If you don't speak English as your first language, and I say on the other hand, and you just translate that to the words, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what it
Right.
means, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So you lose those people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then something I think that we're all becoming much more aware of nowadays is neurodivergence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody learns in different ways,
Yep. Yep.
right?
100%.
We know that the social media world, even the online world, is rampant with misinformation and disinformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's another reason why I feel it's so important for nutrition professionals to speak clearly and specifically and directly to their audience to gain their trust so that they can show them I'm the expert and I can help direct you through this minefield of misinformation that's out there. I mean, and these people are great, but their evidence is completely anecdotal when they're like, "Oh, this is I did it. I lost weight or I fixed my ADHD or I did whatever XYZ, right? And so now do
Mm-hmm.
it my way, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And your way that worked for you could be very dangerous for somebody else.
I understand being the guide, being the expert, like you said, but yeah, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to have the same cookie cutter experience or that they even should.
Right.
And there could be a lot of danger to that. So I thank you for mentioning. And I wonder, like, when it comes to when folks are working on their messaging, no matter what their business is, what's something that you wish more people understood about the role of like editing and clarity in content and marketing? I'm sure that this could be its whole own episode, but
It could be its whole episode,
you know,
but
as they're something when they're working on their content, like what's something that you wish that they understood?
so there are two things. One, and I think especially for the if you're talking about the audience of nutrition pros, right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think sometimes, and I fell into this trap when I first started my business, and you helped me be more me, which I am so thankful for.
Hmm.
I feel like when you're credentialed, it is really easy to hide behind those credentials and try and feel like you have to be this really very polished. You always have to be professional. That is, it is somehow not good ethics or maybe just not good like boundaries for your privacy to really reveal very much about yourself.
Hmm.
And the problem with that is in today's world, people want to get to know you. And there is a lot of information out there online. And so if I need somebody to help me personalize that for me, especially when it comes to food and eating, which is so cultural and traditional and frankly a behavior, right? Eating is a behavior.
Hmm.
I want to know that I'm going to work with somebody who either has experience with what I've experienced or they show some understanding of it, or I can at least get to know a little bit about them and their personality before I choose to work with them. Especially with the way the economy and online buying is working right now, trust. Like we're like, you hear it, everybody's saying we're in a trust recession, right?
Trust recession. I was just
Trust
gonna say, yep.
recession.
Hmm.
So if people can't get to know a little bit about you, and I'm not saying don't have any boundaries, I'm not saying splash yourself all over everywhere, right?
Sure. Yep.
But you need to choose one place, some place where somebody can at least get an inkling of your personality and what you're like. Because I can tell you for sure, if I'm looking for a medical professional, there's two reasons I want to work with them. One, they've got that specialty or that knowledge that I know I need for whatever my medical or nutrition problem is, right? And two, I want to know that like you're the person I could vibe with, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I know that can be
Yep.
hard when you have insurance because, sometimes you just get referred to somebody and you don't really get a choice. But a lot of people these days, if they have even the ability within their network to work with a number of different people, right? Like if they have three people who can help them with whatever their issue is, if they have the time and they're really serious about it, they're going to want to go find something about those three people and they're going to pick the person that they feel like they're going to vibe with the best, right? Like
Absolutely.
who
And
can I make that connection with, right?
absolutely. And your background and your education and your credentials, those are still important. Still have those on your site for the people that
Yes.
need that to push them over
Yes.
the edge, like to show
Right.
like, okay, I really like this person's personality, but also they have the education to back it up. Cool. Like still
Right.
have it, but don't skip that personality part and that, trust building portion where you can really
Yep.
show like, hi, I am a real person. I am not a robot. I am not a resume. Like,
Right.
a real like a little peek into your life, a little peek into the rapport that you might build on your first call or your first visit is so, so important.
Right. And what is that thing that you click over, right? Like people click with you over nachos, right?
Right. I just talked
People
about that
are
in the
like,
intro. Yes.
with me, people are like, "Oh my God, you had me at elephant trainer, right?" Like, you
Right.
know? So, and then I would say the second thing is that especially people who are very well educated, they feel that they can edit themselves or
Mm.
they can just get Grammarly or Word or other some of those other programs to help them. And I'm telling you right now from experience, because it is true for myself as well, even though I am a copy editor and I have been a copy editor for 3 decades, you are your own worst editor because you
Yep.
read what you meant to write.
Ooh, say that again.
You read what you meant to write,
Hmm.
not potentially what you actually wrote. Now,
Hmm.
I will admit to you that some other people in my field are like, when you write your emails or your socials and there's some little errors in it, like that makes it more personable. It makes it more you, like people are more related to you. And as a copy editor, like that's hard for me to swallow to have errors in any of my stuff, but I know it
I
happens
think I
because
think I
I
think
don't
I
have them.
actually have said that to you. I think I've said that to you because I know I've been like, I left the typo in there, and you're probably
Right?
like your eye is twitching. Yeah.
Right. My eye twitches, but I get it. And I know that all of my stuff isn't perfect because again, I'm my own worst editor and I don't have an editor, right? I don't always have
Hmm.
somebody to look over my stuff. But I think for nutrition pros, especially if you have been heavily into the academic world and now you are trying to write for your clients, you're trying to write on social for your clients, you are trying to connect with your clients, having somebody who can help you with your messaging, right? And
Hmm.
and even again, not so much about making sure that you dotted all your I's and crossed your T's and don't have that and didn't miss that comma. It's like, are you connecting in a way? Are you speaking your client's language, right? Like, um, a lot of business coaches talk about this that we get out there and we decide what we want to do, but we forget to ask our ideal client, quote unquote, what they actually want, right?
Hmm.
And so the more you can get out there and hear from the people that you want to help and use their language and create those pictures, right? Like if one person tells you, I'm going to help you eat better so you have more energy. And the next person says to you, I am going to help you eat in a way that allows you to bounce out of bed in the morning, make breakfast for your kids, have their lunch ready, drop them off at school, and then turn around and do whatever else, whatever the other examples might be, right? But think about the picture that that puts in your head versus
Hmm.
the three words have more energy,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So the
Yep.
tweaks sometimes aren't really like people probably sit back and be like, well, I don't think you changed very much, right? But it's those small changes that either stop the scroll, right? Or get people to be like, oh yeah, like that puts a picture in my head of something I want, right? Especially
Mm-hmm.
if that picture is the solution and they can feel that, right? Viscerally, like, oh, that's what I want, right? They're gonna choose
Yep.
you over the person who's just like, I can help you have more energy. Okay, well,
Yep.
energy to do what or how or right?
Such a good point because, and I think they call it future pacing or something like that, where, you're painting the picture of the result that they are wanting, like something that they desire or something that they, are working towards or whatever. Where you're literally painting the picture of their future and
Right.
letting them put, stepping into letting them put themselves in someone else's shoes of that end result. And the difference between the two examples that you gave, the one of having more energy, and then the two of we're gonna bounce out of bed in the morning, we're gonna make, have breakfast with the kids, we're gonna make lunch, like all these different things. You actually created specific
Yes.
moments
Specific.
that
Yeah.
can be visualized.
Yep.
Whereas to your point, have more energy. Okay, well, I have a belly button. Like what does that mean? Like,
Right? Like I'd love to have more
and
energy. And I think that's the question you always have to ask yourself. And that's the question that I'm always trying to ask myself is, um, what what does that mean? What do I
yeah.
mean? And what do I want it to mean to somebody else? And if I can put myself in the other person's shoes and come up with five different things it means, then I'm not specific enough, right? Because maybe I personally don't my thing, my service, my help for you doesn't give you all those five different things. So like maybe those
Mm-hmm.
five different people are my ideal client. But that way, if I'm specific, I'm going to call in those people who are looking for that specific thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes total sense. Um, and I want to talk about also, you reinvented yourself multiple times. And I think that that's so cool and I think it's so interesting. And so first, like because you've reinvented yourself so many times, how has that kind of shaped the way that you do business today, or how you're running your business, or maybe what your intentions are for your business? Like talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I want to preface it with saying that it does not come without fear.
Okay.
And one of the times I did it, it came with intense fear because I literally
Okay.
left well, I've actually done it more than once, but the scariest time I probably did it, um, I left a job without another job and we had just bought a house. I think I have just sometimes I feel like it's just been a response to circumstance
Hmm.
in the sense of, okay, I need a job and I got to find something. And
Mm-hmm.
so I figured it out, right? And in other cases, it was a complete reinvention. People are like, how do you go from being a business manager in a pump station company to being a fitness trainer? I'm like, well, I decided I didn't want to have a boss anymore. I had
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately in that situation had a boss that was just harassed everybody, basically.
Hmm.
That's just the honest truth. And so I was very burnt out. I didn't want to work for anybody else. And so in the trying to transition from that company to another one, I ended up going to work for somebody who was even worse.
Okay.
And to the point where he wasn't paying his employees.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so my
Don't
first
mess
check,
with people's money.
right? So my first check bounced,
Mm,
and then the second check was non-existent. And I was like,
wow.
well, if you're not going to pay me, I'm not coming to work today. And everybody else just trots into the building, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. So
Yeah.
that's part of it too, right? Like, and I've been working on boundaries all my life, but at some point you have to put yourself first and decide what's best for you, even if somebody else is like, "Oh my God, like how can you step away from a job? And it's like, well, especially in this case, I'm not even getting paid. So what is the benefit here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's how, so basically I was like, okay, I'm getting unemployment now. What am I going to do? Because I've now just had this, one long and one short negative experience. I know I don't want to work for somebody else. What can I take from my background? What would I want to do? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I landed on. I was like, I want to have my own business. Okay, if I have my own business, what do I want to do? Okay, one thing I didn't mention is obviously I'm outdoorsy, so I'm trying to stay fit. I've been a gym rat off and on my whole life. So I was like, personal training, that would be fun, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a perfect world where like school doesn't cost money and you don't have school loans, I may have gone back to school to become an actual physical therapist. But I was like,
Okay.
I have school loans. I'm not going back to school. So I basically found a 6-month program in Portland where I could learn hands-on to be a personal trainer. So I saw my husband like every other weekend because I didn't have gas money to drive back to Port to where we were
Mm-hmm.
living in Roseburg every weekend. And pretty much lived on a shoestring and went to personal training school and got unemployment. And because Oregon has special parts of their unemployment where if you are getting education or if you're trying to start your own business, you can continue to claim unemployment, not have to work, not have to find another.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what so for those of you out there who are like, oh, she was just freeloading off unemployment. No, like I actually was part of a program that was like, okay, we're going to pay you to get this training so you can then
Yeah.
go out and get a job, right? Or start your own business. And so that's what I
That's
was
a
doing.
nice
So,
benefit. Yeah.
right. So I was doing that. I was going to school and I was playing roller derby and
Mm-hmm.
also starting to coach roller derby and starting to practice the things that I was learning in personal training school. Um, by leading warm-ups and things like that. But so yeah, I mean, so sometimes I feel like I just sort of fell into reinvention because I didn't have any choice.
Mm-hmm.
And other times it was a pivot around I'm absolutely miserable. What would I actually love to do? And I
And
think,
well, I was just gonna say, like, I think that particular point is so powerful because I was envisioning when you were saying, okay, this guy's not even paying me or any of us, and here go all the lemmings back into the office,
yep, I
like,
said sheep
and
at the time. Yep.
or
Yeah.
sheep, yeah,
Yeah.
and you're just like, hello, like, wait a minute, and I give you so much credit because there have been times in my life where I have been a lemming. There,
Same.
and I think so many folks can relate to that. Like, well, I don't want to be the one to, disrupt anything. Like, I'll just go along with it. Like, it'll get better. I'll just stick it
Right.
out. Like we always hear, keep your
And
head
that's what people were
down,
saying
nose
at
to
the
the
time too, right?
grindstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like just it'll be fine, and I just love that you had the courage and the clarity of mind to be like, no, like this isn't like I'm out.
Yeah.
And I think it's very inspiring and I wish that more people would do that, instead of tolerating um the intolerable and
Right.
the things that are not okay. So good for you for moving on from that. And so then you started your business, and it's still growing as we speak. But you and I have talked a lot in the mini mind and elsewhere about like entrepreneurship in general. It can be a really lonely space.
Yes.
And it can be you're in your own silo, you're doing your own thing. And so I'm curious, what has helped you feel more supported as a solopreneur? How have you kind of found community, found support, found your people? And how would you what advice would you have for others who maybe are looking to find that kind of community for themselves when we're not working in a cubicle anymore?
Right. And I know it's more common to work remotely and work from home even when you work for another business because that's how I work. But I think when
Yeah.
you go to start your own business, it is much more isolating. You don't have sounding boards necessarily, right? Unless you go out and find your people. And so that is before I say what I did, that is my biggest advice to anybody is like Go out and find your people. Find somebody else who is not your partner and who is also somebody who is an entrepreneur, either starting their own business or they've been there, so that you don't feel so alone and like you're kind of in this vacuum trying to figure out your own thing. I bought a course from a gal. She runs a company called Edit Republic, and she actually has like coaching calls that she does. And so I was on this coaching call one day, and there were a number of us that like had the same question for her, and we ended up just talking to each other in the chat and sharing our info. And that was 2 years ago, and those are still women, and we've added a couple women to it that I meet with once a month. And we
Oh, I
just,
love that.
but it is it is really nice. It was so nice to talk to people on a regular basis. And a couple of them have actually become good friends. So I talk to them outside of that group too, to just bounce ideas off or talk about frustrations or that sort of thing, right? Of just like
Yeah.
this is this is what's hard about like trying to start your own business, right? And bounce ideas off and what do you think about this? And
Yep. Yeah. It's so important because it's one thing to listen to a podcast or read a blog or go to a networking event even, watch a YouTube video and those are all great. But they're kind of like one-offs or they're like, maybe topic specific when you're looking for like a specific answer on something or whatever. And my point of view, and sounds like yours too, is to have like that ongoing support and camaraderie, kind of like, okay, we pop in, we pop out. Maybe we can't go to every single session. We can't, talk every single day, whatever. But just to know that people have your back. And I say this all the time too, like if you're new to a community like that, or maybe like a business owner Facebook group or something like that. Even if you just lurk in the beginning, it's just so helpful to see others struggling with the same things, having the same question, sharing the same war stories, or, just being able to take advantage of the advice that's there without you even having to speak up yourself, which is very
right,
cool.
yeah,
They helped me a lot in the beginning of my business. Then I have a Facebook group where I, try to give tips and stuff in there. But I'm in a lot of them as well. And it's just been so helpful to feel like, okay, I'm not crazy, like, or wow, someone gave such great advice on this thing that I'm struggling with. Like that's just awesome. And then you develop like friendships, across the country and
mhm,
such as yourself, like you and I talk all the time. But some of the other ladies that have been in my programs and stuff, like you're all friends. And I'm so grateful for that because let's say I did live in the middle of nowhere. Like I don't, but if I did, like I would have very limited opportunities, even though I would have an online business and an online business can be run anywhere and that's great. I may not have like a spot I can go or, even think of like how I can connect with others in this way. So I think it's really important to be intentional about finding some sort of space where you can get that back and forth friendship, support, whatever. And maybe it's not as fancy as a membership, a course, a Facebook group. Maybe it's, some friends or some colleagues or past coworkers or something who maybe you all have your own business now and you just have a text chain, or
yeah,
you all hop on Zoom once a month or something. Like, there can be very creative ways that you can do that, but it's so important to have that community with other people who get it, not your husband, not your mom, not your kids, not your
not your
neighbor. It's
siblings,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, like don't, what does that say? There's a saying like, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with or something like that.
right, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, everyone in your loved ones want the best for you. They
But they might have
care and
completely
they
no understanding of what you're doing, right?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And they don't know the ins and outs of what you're going through, what your business is, what it does. And so having that, business specific group that you can go to, I think is so important. So then
Yeah.
speaking on that point, as we're heading towards the end here, you just recently wrapped up your first interview series, which is kind of like a summit kind of thing,
Yep.
where you hosted uh, a big group of professionals to give talks on smart marketing for nutrition pros, I think it was called, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and you had all different kinds of speakers on. I was very honored to be one of your speakers. It was a lot of fun. And so I am actually hoping to host some sort of summit sometime in the future too. Um, and so how did it go? Like what surprised you? What did you learn about yourself or your audience? Like just take us behind the scenes a little bit on how that went. I know it was the first
Yeah.
one and you're learning everything and yeah.
Right. One thing I want to say really quick before I get into that is when you go
Mm-hmm.
out and look for business groups, make sure that you find at least one where the emphasis is more on building the relationship than having the transaction of the referral.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely
Because
that.
it will not support you as much if you go and all you're doing is expected to refer each other to other people and create business. Find
Yep.
that place where you can build relationships with people, especially as women, like we need that,
Cosign. Yes.
right? So the interview series slash summit, um, so I went into it expecting it to be a lot of work, and oof, it was like even more work than I expected. Um,
Yeah.
I definitely want to figure out how, because I'm definitely going to do another one. I definitely want to figure out
Okay.
how to do it differently and how to have some support in some spaces, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I will say I was sort of thrown into it in the sense that I'm doing a coaching program where doing this type of event was the audience build part of the coaching program. And so it was sort
Mm-hmm.
of like, hey, you're going to do a summit and we're going to give you a little recipe and then like you're just throwing you in the deep end. You're going to, and I mean, no slam to my coaching program. That's how a lot of coaching programs are, right? Take
Mm-hmm.
action, learn from action, figure it out as you go because there's this common consensus, and I know it's very true for me, that you can get stuck in the learning and then you never do anything, right?
Yes.
They had us
Yes.
just doing action. So the recipe was you're going to do a 14-day summit interview series, whatever you want to call it. You are going to get 28 speakers. You're going to be one of the speakers. You're going to interview all of them because that's going to help build your authority instead of just having them pre-record things that you're not involved with. And
Mm-hmm.
the original goal is that from all of those speakers, from their email lists, you're going to have a reach of like 124,000 people. I didn't hit that reach because part of doing that is that you have to require your speakers to have anywhere from a 3 to a 5,000 person email list. And I found for me that that was the most difficult part of it is trying
Hmm.
to hit that sweet spot of email lists because a lot of people who are in that range or bigger, they either don't do interview series anymore or they don't do them without getting paid for them. And I wasn't doing a paid version. Or
Mm-hmm.
they're willing to speak, but they're not willing to promote, even though they have these bigger email lists, right? And then you get a lot of people who are below those sizes who are more than happy to participate because they also are trying to grow their audience like you are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yep.
they're more than happy to participate. They're more than happy to promote because they are also looking to get audience growth out of it as well. So, um, the things that I was disappointed by, but not necessarily surprised because I kind of expected it, is, you have people sign an agreement in the beginning that they're going to do a certain much amount of promotion for you. And the email promotion is really the most important because that's really your audience, right? Like you can talk about things on social media till you're blue in the face, but you don't really know who's seeing it. You don't know how well
Mm-hmm.
you sign up for it, that sort of thing. Whereas your email list people, they're a lot more invested in you, right? They're getting your
Mm.
emails. They are more likely to when you're like, hey, go check out this person, they're more likely to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go do that, right? So, when you have people who signed up and they said, yeah, I'm on board, and then you get to the promotional part of the before the event starts and it's like crickets. That was
Mm-hmm.
like I knew it was gonna happen, but it was still like sort of frustrating and disappointing because I'm the kind of person who is very much like if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it even if I sort of have to like drag myself there to do it, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am probably better at meeting my commitments to other people than I am to my commitments to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, so it was a lot of work in that sense. I ended up with 22 speakers, I think, and I actually would have had probably closer to 30.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's another piece of advice that I didn't really think I like was sort of aware of, but I didn't really think about it until it started happening. Um, I had a lot of people go, "Oh yeah, I can participate," and then when they actually looked at the promotional calendar and compared it to their promotional calendar, they were like, "Yeah, no, I can't." Which I was happy, right? That they were like, "I can't, I can't fit this into my thing," right? I'd rather have them
Mm-hmm.
do that than participate and then not, uh,
Yeah.
you know, hold up their end of the bargain. So, you always have to maybe plan for more or try and get more people signed up than you think you want so that you end up in the end with the amount of maybe that amount of people that you wanted. Um, and the other thing that it was kind of taught, but I took it to heart and I really used it was I didn't just send out some mass email that every person got that I asked to speak got the same email. Because I mean, especially people who are at that level, they probably get a ton of requests to do this type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I really took the time to personalize the emails that I sent to people to really tell them why I wanted them to be part of my series, right? So I had
Mm-hmm.
either found something on their social media or on their website or something that I could point to and be like, I think this is cool with you, or this resonated with me, or we have this in common. And that's why I think like you'd be a great addition to my interview series, right? And so the the coaching program that I'm part of is huge on data. And so they say to get 28 speakers, that you have to reach out to about 200 people, which
Mm.
gives you
Okay.
about 14% or something like that is the percentage of what the speakers that you're getting out of how many you sent out. I was closer to like 50 or 60% yeses. And so I had to do way less outreach. But again, I probably still spent the same amount of time as somebody who sent out 200 or 300 because I was taking the time to personalize each email.
Yeah. Which I think speaks to the 50 or 60%.
Right?
Like because you took the time, and I think that that's something that is a good lesson here too, is sometimes we're like, "All right, let me just get it out." Like, okay, templates are great. Boom, done for me. Swipe copy. I can just, it's
Right?
easy. Like, okay,
Yeah.
yes, like I get it. But also like you can zhuzh it up a little bit. Like you can
Yeah.
add, some rainbow sprinkles and say, like, change this one sentence, change this one chunk.
Yep.
And because also, like, hello, you're hosting this thing, you're reaching out to people that you're going to be associated with.
Yep.
So, why are you reaching out? Like, are you just like copying a whole list of random ass people and inviting them to this thing and you don't know shit about them? Like, no, like, customize your invite. And so you were doing that. That obviously stood out and they thought, they appreciated that. So, that's something that I think is just a great lesson with anything. Any kind of like cold outreach like that, where you
Hmm.
might not necessarily have a relationship with the person yet. Maybe you've been following them on social, maybe you're on their email list, but like they don't know you yet.
Right.
Taking the time to customize it with that, I'm sure went far.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, is like for the next time around, when I have more lead up time to it, the folks out there who are like the experts on running summits will tell you don't send cold emails, like try and drop into
Hmm.
people's comments or DMs that you think you might want to speak for you at some point. Obviously, I didn't, I started in February for a summit that was actually supposed to run in April. I pushed mine out to May because with working full time, I knew that I couldn't get all the work in, and it was still a lot of work. And the other side of it too is if you are doing it as somebody who's really brand new, where you don't have an email list or provider yet, right? Like you don't have um, a place to like host your summit. Like I learned how to use Kajabi in like a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I did get great templates from my coaching program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's a whole technological back end to this where I know for sure I made a ton of mistakes. I had a lot of learnings, like I had like so the very first day I get an email from somebody and they're like, "Hey, I didn't get the links for today's interviews." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I'm using Kit for my email, which used to be ConvertKit. So I went into Kit and I had somehow messed up the tags. So the first day email for everybody with all the links to the two videos for that day went out to 30 people instead of 300 and somewhat people, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was something I learned. And so basically and again, part of, I think what is helpful is every time something glitched or I had an oops, like I was very transparent about it, right? So like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
first
you are.
day when most people did not get the links to the interviews until like later in the day, I was like, okay, these are going to stay up for more than 24 hours. I also learned towards the end, like when I was doing the replay, that like I'm not quite sure that I had all the right settings in Kajabi. Like the videos might have been up more than 24 hours like they were supposed to, which I was like, dang it. Like that's sort of like a big deal to like think that maybe I got wrong. But again, like you have it's a big undertaking. There's a lot of technology around it because you've got emails that need to go out to every day. Your videos have to live somewhere, so you have to have landing pages and places where people can sign up and
Yeah.
then how do you, if you, like I sold the VIP pass. So what's the technology behind selling the VIP pass, right? Because initially I was going to do like another gal in my cohort did where she just ran it all off the back end of her website in
Mm-hmm.
Squarespace. And I was going to do that. And then I realized, well, then the pages have to be password protected and like videos have to, she tried to host the videos on her website and that was glitchy. So then she had to move them over to YouTube, which we had actually kind of gotten advice they should probably live there, or Vimeo. But again, right? So there's all this, like that was like one of the biggest challenges for me was, and I feel like I'm pretty tech savvy.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was still one of the biggest challenges of like, okay, figuring out all of the pieces I needed, how the technology worked together. My coaching program really pushed ClickFunnels or FG funnels, and I knew I didn't want to do that because I already had Kit, and that those two funnel programs also send emails, and to me anyway, they're fairly expensive to pay for every month. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I already paid for a year of ConvertKit. I don't want to pay for something else that is also going to do emails. And it does emails, but it also charges you per email. So I was like, I already paid for Kit. I want to find something that will work with Kit and give me the
Mm-hmm.
other pieces that I need, like the landing pages and whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of that, that part of it, I had to completely figure out myself because my program does not do that. So
Yeah.
like, if I had and I know like a lot of people will say I did not come at it with the right abundance mindset, but I was very much like I am not going to spend a lot of money on this upfront because I have no idea of what I am going to make coming out of it. Because some people in my cohort have a fairly um I mean they have a niche, but it's potentially very large, right? Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to parents of ADHD children, right? Like that's a much bigger niche than my niche of nutrition professionals, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Your ability to make some money off your summit is much larger than my potential ability to and to me, that's just a fact. To me, that's not having like a non-abundance mindset, right? It's just a fact. But I did definitely go into it of like, I'm not going to spend a much money up front, right? So, I mean, so you can hire VAs to do a bunch of different things for you, right? but I also didn't want to hire a VA that I didn't know and I wasn't familiar with, right as like all the work was happening for the summit. I did not want to be the testing ground of like our relationship, how well they did their work, like
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
again, you have these two groups that you have now been introduced to that you want to start off on a good foot with, right? You've got your speakers who you want to provide great support. You want to do all the things you can do for them because basically you're highlighting them and their expertise to the people who are coming to the event. And the people who are coming to the event, they don't start out as your followers, right? That's part of why this is an audience build because you are trying to bring people into your audience from their audience.
Yeah.
So not only are you trying to highlight them and give them a good experience, but you also want to give their people a good experience and give them value so that hopefully they get something good out of it. They buy the VIP pass, they hang around in your community as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love that throughout this whole experience, you're kind of like baptized by fire. You're like, figuring things out as you go. Even though you're in a program where they're giving you guidance and stuff, you're kind of like, you did this hybrid model where you were like, cool, I'm going to take the guidance. I'm going to like do this event, but I'm also going to do it my way. I'm going to fudge things if I have to. I'm going to make this system talk to this system in the best way that it can and that the best way that I know how. And of course, there's going to be folks out there who are like, I'm not tech savvy. I need it to just be smooth. I don't care. I'll pay for the convenience, whatever. It is what it is. But again, as we've been saying throughout this whole episode, everybody's different. Everybody has different preferences, different backgrounds, different styles, different, ways that they want to do it. And so I applaud you for finding, forging your own path down the trail and, figuring out the way that worked best for you because when I was starting out, when I made my course, which is going to be opening its doors again soon for the fourth time, um, yes, alumni here. Um, I went through a course that taught me how to build that course. And same kind of thing. There were recommended programs, platforms, you should sign up with this service, this tool, this. But like you, I already had, an email platform I was paying for. I already had certain tools that I was paying for, and I was kind of the same mindset. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. I am not going to jump off the deep end, jump into the deep end. I really like want to um give it my best shot, but like with tools that I'm familiar with and kind of like, this a hybrid sense as well.
Right.
And that's what I did. I didn't want to invest in a big course platform. I found one that I could turn on and off as I needed it. It was relatively inexpensive. I didn't do some of the webinar, platforms that they suggested. I found this other thing that was, really low cost. It might have even been free.
Right.
Um, and so I love that. Like there are ways to there's many ways to skin a cat. Like there are so many ways to accomplish whatever the end result is. And what I love most is that you kept going. You didn't let it rattle you. You stayed on course through
Well, I did have my
the,
rattly days.
well,
I did have
yes,
the
of
days where I
course.
screamed in my pillow, right? Or I felt like
Hmm.
so amazingly overwhelmed. But like that's
Sure.
the thing is like you can't you can't let that stop you. Like you're
That's more
saying.
what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
You stuck with it through the rapids and you were like, okay, that happened. Shit. Well, now I
Exactly.
know.
Lots of oh shit
And
moments for sure.
And like next time, you've already experienced them. So next time, you won't have to experience them again, because you know how it felt or you know what to do for next time. So I love that. And I'm so excited that you are already thinking about the next one. And like you said, your coaching program is like big on data. You have so much data now. Like you have all this, all these communications and all these results and all these emails and posts and all this stuff to look through to see what you would tweak for next time. So I'm very excited for you, very proud of you, as I've said to you. Like this was a huge undertaking. And I'm just so excited that you completed it. And now you're like, all right, now how can we make the next one, better for you, on the management side and the
Right.
experience side for the audience. So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
and what you can what you can learn and do. So I'm really excited for you for that. Okay. Last kind of interviewee type question. What is something that you are obsessed with right now? It could be anything. Pop culture, entertainment, food, anything.
I just finished watching The Handmaid's Tale,
Okay.
the
I
last
no
season.
spoilers because
No spoilers.
I just started the final season, so I'm behind, but I love that show too.
So that, and then so this is really funny. I There's a set of books that a couple of sets of books that I love to read that are considered like this is a new genre. It's called romantasy. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
romance mixed with like fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my editor friends is very serious about her fantasy, and so she's always teasing me about what I read because she says it's not good romantasy, but I'm in there with the masses because she's a very popular writer. So I am almost done with Rebecca Yaros's last Dragon series which is called Onyx Storm.
Okay.
And
Cool.
so I'm like trying to like I it was so funny. The book came out and I bought it and then I let it sit for a while. I tend to read very quickly, and so
Okay.
I try and like make myself take times like oh I can only read one chapter or I can only read two chapters because I will sit down and like read the whole book and then I'm like I have to wait
Mm-hmm.
2 years for the next one to come out or however long it takes me to write, right? And so I actually
Gotcha.
let it sit on my shelf for a while. I actually read because I kind of go back and forth between like a more of a self-helpy type book and then a fun book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I usually also have something on my Audible. So I usually have like three books going at the same time. But those are my just totally fun, like doesn't take a lot of brain work or anything type books. So I'm very much into romantasy right now because it's
Okay.
usually fun and light. Handmaid's Tale, not fun and not necessarily fun
Nope.
and light, but
We've
I
got both ends of the spectrum
both
here.
ends of the spectrum here, yeah. But I love it. I think Elizabeth Moss and everybody else in it was just amazing, and yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely we all have to have our escapes
Yeah.
into, different kinds of entertainment and stuff. And I'm a multitasker entertainment person like you. So like I'll be, listening to a podcast while I'm coloring or I'm watching TV
Oh,
while
same.
I'm, reading or scrolling or whatever.
Right? For
So
example,
I could totally relate.
yeah, so I was watching Handmaid's Tale and I was doing cross stitch. Like I have this thing
Hmm.
now where it's hard for me, like I'm playing with like putty while we chat. It's
Hmm.
like I wasn't so much that way as a kid, but the older I've got, the more it's like I can't just listen or just watch. Like I have to have something in my hand, right? Like, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
luckily I had a boss who was really supportive of basically fidgets in meetings.
I was just gonna
She-
say we all have our fidget toys, yeah.
Right? But there's actual research out there that shows that if somebody is doodling or fidgeting during your meeting, they're actually the one who is paying attention and who is on
Hmm.
task, right?
I believe that. I believe that. Yeah, I needed to do that sometimes to absorb what was being said in some weird way. So I totally relate to that.
And
Um,
I went from
oh,
a
go ahead.
culture where we had fidgets to one where we didn't. And I had to explain it in every single meeting because people were just so distracted by the fact that I was doing something else with my hands. And so
Hmm.
that was kind of a struggle, actually.
Yeah. Now you don't have to explain to anybody.
Right? I don't. Because most of the time I'm sitting behind a computer and you can't even see what my hands are doing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, what is next for Penrose Professional Services? And where can people find you, follow along, work with you? And I'm going to put
So,
all your links in the show notes for those listening.
yes, and I need to send you some new ones, a new one too.
Okay.
So what is next? So what I am trying to get through and get going because technically, if I was again doing the cookie cutter thing, I would have already been there and been doing it. But the next thing is like a challenge or a master class, and to actually get to the point where I'm trying to sell things. What a concept, right? To like have a
Woohoo!
business where you sell things.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so that is coming down the pipe pretty soon. Couple places you can find me. I did start a Facebook group after my interview series, which is called Smart Marketing for Nutrition Pros, and I kept it going as just like my main Facebook group. I figured I got lots of bodies in there. They're all interested about marketing and communication, so let's keep
Mm-hmm.
that going, right?
Absolutely.
On Instagram, you can find me um, at Plain Language Works. You can also find me under my name, Anisa Bear, on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my website is a mouthful. It's penroseprofessionalservices.com. And
Okay.
the new thing that I'm going to have up and going once it will or getting started is a new page on my website, which is going to be Penrose Professional Services slash freebies, where I'm going to have some of my lead magnets up there. Um, I've had one for a while, which is 7 steps to clear communications for dietitians, but I haven't really had a place for people to find it and get it. Like I did some links and some webinars, but I haven't really put it out there on social media or any place yet, or actually even in my email, which I need to do. But the newest one I put together, um, is called the Clear Content Checklist, and it's simpler because it's just 4 questions that you need to ask when you're writing any sort of message to help make it stick, to help make it
Oh,
so that your
awesome.
customers will understand. So I'll have both of those there, plus some resources to just other plain language things. Like there's a website called plainlanguage.gov where you can learn a lot about just plain language in general.
Mm-hmm.
So some more
Awesome.
resources for plain language. Yeah, so I'm
I
working on
like that. You're
that.
kind of like rounding up the resources in one spot for them for easy finding.
Yeah, because it's funny. When I first I revamped my website to make it more specific to nutrition professionals when I finally decided like that was my niche, and I sent it out to some dietitian friends of mine, and one of them, she is so sweet. She's like in her 70s. She's getting ready to retire, and she's like, I loved your website. She's like, but I don't know what plain language is. She's like, I had to look that up. She's like, I think you should make sure the definition is on your website. And I was like, that's a really good point. It was
Mm.
like the first change I made.
Yeah, there we go. I love
Again,
that.
right? You get stuck in your own thing of like
Yep. More
plain language.
data
Everybody knows what that is, right?
yeah, but also it's like another example of like your audience, your people can tell you what they need and they'll explain when they don't understand something. But the most important takeaway of that is not all of them are going to do that. Some of
Right.
them are, going to tell you, but most of them are going to bounce in and bounce out when they can't find or
Exactly.
understand
Yep.
what is being said. And so thank the Lord for those people that do take a second to tell you so that you can fix it and make it better for then those next visitors to find you. It's like we
Yeah.
have to realize that we're losing people. People
Hmm.
are just, bouncing in, bouncing out, and that's it. So let that be even more motivation to get your stuff
Yeah.
tighter and better and clearer.
I think that was an aha moment from like talking to people who attended the interview series is sometimes when you ask people questions about what their pain points are, you have to listen well enough to hear what they're not telling you or to try and figure out what's behind
Mm,
it. Like I was talking about earlier, right? They're all like, I don't feel like I'm getting in front of my audience. Well, it's probably not that you aren't getting in front of your audience. It's that your message isn't resonating or clear with your audience. And they're not
mm,
telling you, just like you said, they're not telling you that.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
just think it's crickets because they're not actually seeing you when they
yep.
probably are seeing you, but you aren't communicating effectively enough with them for them to respond, to
The,
take action.
yeah, and there's also a certain amount of, or I should say, when you're adjusting work that you have created, when you're adjusting marketing or designs or a course or content, whatever, stuff that you have created and written, you need to have a healthy dose of humility
Hmm.
to be brave
One of the
enough
hardest
to
parts.
to admit that it could be better, that you've got
Yeah.
blind spots,
Yep.
that, all of that. This is something I struggle with for sure.
Same.
And uh ChatGPT helps me a little bit with this, with identifying, different points of view or,
Hmm.
where I'm falling short or whatever. But even before I get to that point, is just like the fact of like, okay, let me like be vulnerable with myself for a moment
Hmm.
and not get so caught up in like the ego and the feels of like, no, this is like totally perfect. Couldn't be possibly be better.
Right?
And it could. Like, I think there is definitely a time where with my projects, I have to make myself stop tweaking and I have to be like,
Right?
just
You have to call it
just
done
yeah, just publish
for
it,
now.
done like done is better than perfect. I do believe that. But on the other hand, which is a phrase we shouldn't use all the time because of what you explained earlier, on the other hand, um, you know, things can always be improved.
Right?
Um,
But
and
how are
and
you
we
going to
just
know that they need improvement if you don't actually get it done in the first place and find out what the response is? That's what I
yes,
always have to keep telling myself, right? Just
yes,
because I
yes.
am a recovering perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
which many of my audience are the same way, are not actually recovering. They're still perfectionists. I found that to be
Yeah,
very true, especially for dietitians. And so you
yeah.
just have to get it done. You have to get something out there because you won't know.
Yep.
If you're
Yep.
just fiddling with it behind the scenes and nobody ever sees it, you don't know.
Exactly. Like at some point, you've got to publish these babies and let them perform so you can learn and so
Yeah.
you can, adjust for next time. And that's such a good reminder for all of us. Anissa, thank you so much for being on. This was such a great chat, as I knew it would be. And,
So much fun.
it just, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
you're welcome. My pleasure. And thank you so much for opening our eyes to why, it's so important to be aware of the need for plain language in whatever your industry is, but especially for those who are in health and wellness and coaching and all of that stuff. The work that you do is so personal and you're working so closely with your clients
We
that
are.
it
Yeah.
really it really matters and it really behooves you to take a minute and consider this topic and
Yeah.
how to clarify your messaging, and make it all stronger so that they don't have to waste time trying to figure out what the frig you're trying to say. They're just ready to book their consultation with you because
Right.
they just love what you're saying. They understand it. They're ready to take that action. So if you're listening and you want to get your shit together, you need to contact Anisa. She can help you with all of that. And thank you again so much for being on. This was such a
Thanks,
fun
Alicia.
chat,
This has
and
been
I
great.
will chat with you soon.
Yes, sounds great.
All right,
All right.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.